Hello and welcome to the channel, and I'm here for a ranking video for you guys. Now for this ranking, I'll be ranking the albums by the Swedish supergroup band Soen. Now Soen is a band that I'm kind of new to. I just got into them earlier this year, like January. So yeah, this band only has 5 albums and they're a pretty new band as well. They released their debut, I want to say sometime in 2012, so that is definitely not an old band for sure. So it is kind of surprising that I do like these guys because, well, most of the bands that I'm into are bands that have been around for decades. So yeah, kind of surprising that I got into a 2010s band, but I think the thing that really stands out about this band for me in particular is, well, for one, they are a supergroup, so they do have multiple members of bands that have been around for a while, and you know, this band doesn't even sound like that they came out in the 2010s. Like, if you were to tell me, if I never heard this band before, that this band released their debut in the late 90s or something, I probably would have believed you. So yeah, definitely a great band though, and a very underrated band for sure. Definitely a band that I think deserves more attention for sure. So let's go ahead and rank the Soen albums from worst to best. Now keep in mind, I don't think Soen has ever released a bad album, so just because I have some albums, you know, if I have an album at the bottom that may be your favorite, I mean, that's fine, of course. There's really no wrong answers when it comes to Soen's discography. They don't have that many albums, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, at the bottom, at number 5, I gotta go with their second album, their 2014 release. Let's see if I can pronounce this. Tellurian. So yeah, this album I do think is their weakest. My main issue with this album is it's just not very memorable, or at least it's the least memorable album. I mean, I still think it's a very good album for sure. Like I said, there's no weak album from this band, but to me, I think if you were to make me choose which one I think is the most forgettable, probably have to go with this one. There's not really much I remember from this one. Then again, I really only listened to it a couple of times. But yeah, it's a good album, but it's just the least memorable one to me anyways. Not really much to say about it. It's just an album that has Soen doing their thing, of course. But Tellurian, it's not a bad album. I think it's very good, actually. It's just my least favorite of their discography, of course. So let's go ahead and move on to what's at number 4. Now, number 4 for me would have to be Cognitive, which is their debut album, their 2012 release. And this is a very good album, for sure. It's a very strong album. I mean, it's a very strong debut, and to be honest, I was kind of hesitant putting this album at number 3, but it's got to be at number 4 for me. I think that this is a very strong album. I mean, this is probably the album where they sound the most like Tool, I think, because Soen is a very Tool-influenced band for sure, and this album definitely showcases that. It really does showcase their influences. I know they got in some Opeth comparisons as well. Definitely a great album, great debut album once again. I mean, if I were to pick out some favorites, I really like Sevilla. Sevilla is just an excellent song, maybe one of their best songs. I just really like Jules' vocal delivery in that song, especially in the chorus. I also really like the song Canvas. That's another really great track. But Cognitive, their debut album, it's very good. It's a very good album. Now, these top 3 I actually have on CD. I had to get these through eBay, of course, because, well, Soen CDs are actually not that easy to come across in local retailers. Actually, I haven't seen a Soen CD in a local retailer at all. So, yeah, definitely not a band that's real high in demand, I guess. They are a pretty small band still. Like I said, they're a very underrated band, but I have these 3 on CD because these are my top 3 favorites, but I would probably eventually like to get everything from Soen. So at number 3, I'm going to have to go with their 2019 release, Lotus. Now, what's interesting is that I know that there's some people that have this at the bottom of the ranking. I know that there's actually some people that say that this is Soen's weakest album. I personally don't know where they're coming from with that. I mean, I can maybe understand a little bit, but there's some very solid stuff on this album. I mean, there's not really a weak song on this album. Now, you could really say that for all Soen's songs in their albums, because there's no weak song from this band either. They're one of those bands that have no weak track. So far, anyway. I mean, we are only 5 albums into their career, so who knows? This band might have a misstep with the next album, but we'll have to see. But as of right now, there's no weak Soen song. But yeah, not a bad song from this album, obviously. I mean, you got great tracks like Opponent, Martyrs, the title track, Covenant. You also got River and Rival. Just excellent stuff. I mean, River, maybe one of my favorite Soen songs. I just really like the emotion and the structure that this song has to offer. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it really is a captivating sounding song. Lotus, that's my 3rd favorite Soen album, which might be unpopular for some fans, but that's okay. Again, there's no wrong answers when it comes to this band's discography, but I really dig this album. It's excellent. So at number 2, I'm going to have to go with their 2017 release of Lycaea. Yeah, definitely a very strong album for sure. I mean, there's a lot to like about this album. To me, I think this has some of Jewel's best vocal delivery, some of the best instrumentation, and some of their best tracks. I mean, of course, you got Lucidity, you got Opal, you got Stray, and Paragon. Paragon is just, it's excellent. Very strong song. Probably another one of my favorite Soen songs, and yeah, very strong album for sure. And I think this is probably one of their best, I would say. Some people might disagree with this album being this high in my ranking. Maybe some people think that this is one of their weakest. Again, that's okay. I mean, I personally don't care what your opinion is on, you know, their discography and, you know, how would you rank them or whatever, but yeah, very strong album. So that's what's coming in at number 2. Now, here we are at number 1. Now, number 1, I'm sure some people might disagree with, since this album is still very recent and maybe it's still got to, I guess, grow on some people or whatever. You know, maybe it's not an immediate listen for some people, but to me, this album really got me right away, or I guess captivated me right away. I mean, the moment that I've listened to this album for the first time, this is the album that got me into the band after all. So maybe I am just a little bit biased because this album kind of means something to me, since this is the album that did get me into Soen after all. And I am, of course, talking about their 2021 release of Imperial. Very strong album, and still, right now, my album of the year, my number 1 favorite album of the year for sure. Absolutely dig this album. It's excellent. I mean, once again, not a bad song on this album. I mean, you got Lumerian, Deceiver, Illusion. I mean, I remember the first time I listened to that song, I was just absolutely mind blown by the solo and just Jewel's vocal delivery. I mean, it was like something that I never really heard before, but at the same time, you know, it had some similarities, I guess, to other progressive music bands, I guess. But I just remember being absolutely mind blown by that song. I mean, it's just excellent. It's more of a power ballad, and I really like it. I really like it a lot. And you also got Modesty and Dissident, Fortune. A lot of great stuff on this album. I mean, if you haven't listened to this album, please check it out. I mean, if you're looking to check out one of the best albums of the year so far, Imperial by Soen. Definitely a great album, and that's what's coming in at number 1. So there you have it. That is my ranking of Soen's discography. Let me know what you guys think. Are you a Soen fan? How would you rank their albums? Feel free to let me know in the comments. What do you think of this ranking? So on that note, thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.